Well, here's a custom Gravely project that I've been working on for a while now. I started this at the end of December, beginning of January this year, and yeah, you guys haven't seen it for the same reason that the tandem hasn't been up on YouTube. So after this, make sure you look for the pictures slideshow of it, of the build process so far. So anyways, the back tractor here is a Model L 1960, and I got this tractor for free at the end of last year, so I couldn't beat that. The gas tank's off of it now because it has a bunch of pinholes in it, which I have to fill up at some point. I also have a governor on the back of it, which is in pretty good shape. It doesn't leak or anything. And the setup I have for this back tractor is the same as the back tractor on the tandem. I got the side braces that come down from the fan shroud, same throttle cable setup and everything with the little bracket. Runs down into the carburetor. For the other side here, you got the shift rods, only this time I made my own shift rods instead because I didn't want to cut up a good pair that was on a Gravely. So those worked out pretty nice for the high-low and forward and reverse. And what this project is, as you can see as we go along, is a sliding drive shaft which powers a L transmission facing this tractor with dual wheels and a dump bed on the front. So what I'm building is a four-wheel drive Gravely dump truck. I came up with this idea after I did the tandem and thought it would be pretty cool to do, so I started building it. So to start off with, on the front of this tractor we start with a 400 series rider PTO plate right there, which drives a drive shaft that came off of my Aaron's S16H mower deck I got when I bought the tractor. And this end here, as you can see, it's got the quick disconnect, a new one, because on the end of it, it used to have this that went into the gearbox on the mower deck, and that wouldn't work on the spline shaft. So I found this one online for pretty cheap. It was 23 or 25 bucks, I think, and that worked out pretty nice. And the front one already has one, so I got lucky on that. And then we have the articulating point as we go along, and those also have bushings in them. I think it's 7/8 outside diameter with a 5/8 bolt inside diameter tightened down. So that worked out pretty good for the bushing and everything, for my articulation joint. And on the front of the tractor here, we have a 400 series PTO plate, which drives the same thing for the PTO shaft that goes in the middle here. And those plates, a big thanks goes out to Steve, Steve P. Churchek on YouTube, for finding me those. And thanks again, Steve, because without those I wouldn't be able to do this project. And as we move along, we also have the shift rod for the front tractor here, which was kind of tough to figure out because I have to get past this bed. And I couldn't go up onto the handlebars because when you dump it, those go up. So I came up with this bracket here. It took a while, so it makes a twist, comes up with another bend there to move this over. And it just misses that bottom bracket for the bed where it comes down to. But it works out pretty good. So you have reverse and forward, and it goes right down to the clutch arm there with the springs. So that worked out pretty nice. And for the foot pegs, I just use 1 by 3/8 flat stock, which worked out pretty good. Have some gussets in there, so they're not going anywhere. And for the dump bed, that's 30 inches wide by 36 inches long. And the back of it, I believe, is 10.5 inches tall. It's made out of 1.5 by 1.5 by 1/8 square tubing that's galvanized. And the pivot point for it is a 1/2 piece of 1/2 rod. And I mounted the pivot on 2 of the axle housing bolts here, as you can see. And it was a good place, so I just came up with some tubing, and I made 2 little brackets that came out. And for the place where the bed goes down to, I have a piece of angle iron here with 2 pieces of 1-inch flat stock that run down to that bracket, and another 2 pieces that run down to the plate on the back of this transmission. And while I'm here, I forgot to explain that. So I have my articulation joint there, and for my pivot back and forth so this tractor can twist, I have this piece of 3/8 plate with a notch that gets cut in the top of it, so you can see where it can go back and forth. And the 5/8 bolt, and that also has another bushing in there, so it doesn't wear against the bolt. You can see if I can do this. and that gives you your pivot, and it can only go so far also to each side, which is nice, so it prevents it from flipping over or twisting too far. And on the bottom is just a solid hole, and I also have another bushing that goes through this piece right here. And there's also 2 holes for grease fittings, whether you can see them in there or not, but they're on each side of that bolt. And the handlebars, I came off the back here with a couple of triangular gussets welded on each corner, and I welded on the handlebars there. And I thought I was going to need some bracing, cross bracing or anything, but actually that worked out pretty good the way they are, and they're actually pretty sturdy for turning and everything, so that worked out nice. And these handlebars weren't actually good Gravely handlebars, which I'll throw a picture in here. They're actually pretty darn bent up. That's why I ended up having to cut and splice into this one to make it a little bit longer. And for the front of this transmission, which actually, if you look back in my videos when I got my commercial 12, this was the parts transmission I got, the Model L parts transmission. So to cover up where the engine goes, I made this plate here, which bolts on with the same bolts as your engine would, and the gasket goes right behind it. And as for the clutch rods, which I'll throw in a picture so you can see what it looks like behind here, and you'll see what I did to keep the PTO shaft in place. Because I kept the back half of the clutch, I took out the front cup and the front cone. I left the rear cone and cup, I think it's called, and I left the planetaries with the sun gear. I took the orbital gears out, and I made these little fingers that come down and hold the sun gear in place, so that way it doesn't move back and forth. So basically it just holds the PTO shaft in place. And these 2 bolts on the side are jam nuts, and there's 5/16 bolts that go inwards, and they push against the clutch rods in here. They just keep tension on that clutch so it doesn't move around. So at some point I'll get around to taking this rod off of here. And it's also got old style hubs in the front with the dual wheels, and at some point I'll put the new style hubs on to match the back tractor. Back tractor is also going to get dual wheels, which I have some more turf tires here I'll be putting on there at some point. And I'm also going to have to do seals in the axles back in here, so I have to have a cup under it or else it'll drip. I think over the course of 2 or 3 weeks it leaked 2/3 of a cup, so those have to get done at some point. So other than that, it's a pretty cool project. Personally, I think it blows the tandem out of the water, because it's just really neat. And when I'm sitting on it, if this is generally engaged most of the time anyways, when I turn it just misses my leg. And to engage the transmissions, pretty much you just engage your rear PTO there and your front PTO there, and you're going. So that's your 4-wheel drive. And it worked out pretty good. So I'm going to try to do some more build videos of this. I still have to make a latch for the rear dump bed and put the wood on the bed. And then I'm debating whether I'll be able to restore this thing this year. I was going to paint it traditional Gravely colors for the back with the red hood, black transmission. Same with the front, probably a black transmission, white wheels, red dump body. So it's coming along pretty good, and I'll try to keep you guys updated on it. Probably be working on it some this week and weekend. So anyways, folks, there you have it, the Gravely custom dump truck.